Support comes from Mosby Building Arts, trusted for remodeling projects big and small. Ideas at callmosby.com.
From the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Monday, November 24th. I'm Abby Larico. People in North St. Louis are still trying to repair their homes more than 6 months after the May 16th tornado. U.S. Senator Josh Hawley says insurance companies must do right by tornado survivors.
People pay their policy for all of these years. Now when they need help, all too often it's a pattern. These insurance companies come back and say, well, you don't quite qualify. It's not quite right.
STLPR reporters working on the ground are hearing from families who are having to fight to get payouts from insurance providers. Their stories coming up after this news on The Gateway. The first week of a state trial that could permanently remove St. Louis Sheriff Alfred Montgomery from the job brought a slew of accusations against the currently jailed official. St. Louis Public Radio's Brian Munoz is covering the case.
More than 20 witnesses testified during the first week of the trial brought by the Missouri Attorney General. Witnesses alleged that Montgomery had ordered a former deputy to surrender his personal firearm under a threat of arrest, altered a separate deputy's report using artificial intelligence, and skirted the city's procurement process. The last includes a vehicle purchase that left the office's former finance chief, Tashana Sias, so distressed she said she hid in a bathroom for 45 minutes before signing the check. Despite what some say is the strength of the testimony against the sheriff's staff attorney, David C. Mason, feels otherwise.
I feel pretty good because we have seen a lot of the key witnesses are simply not reliable.
Only time will tell if Circuit Judge Stephen R. Omer will ultimately agree with him. I'm Brian Munoz, St. Louis Public Radio.
The trial continues today. A Texas-based company is strongly denying that they're using immigrants without legal status to bolster a referendum effort. Attorney General Catherine Hanaway accused the company Advanced Micro-Targeting on social media last week of, quote, reportedly employing illegal aliens in their efforts to undermine the will of the people's elected representatives, end quote. The company is gathering signatures for People Not Politicians, which is trying to place Missouri's new congressional redistricting map up for a vote. Advanced Micro-Targeting's Billy Rogers says his company conducts background and immigration status checks of its signature gatherers.
What I do know is what she tweeted is not true.
Hanaway's office declined to comment. Federal officials are touting the results of a surge of FBI agents to the St. Louis region since August. St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Littman has more on what the department says was a success.
Director Kash Patel and Co-Deputy Director Andrew Bailey were in town Friday to brief local and state law enforcement and elected officials on the results of that surge. According to data the Bureau provided, St. Louis field agents arrested 276 people. The office is responsible for a wide swath of eastern Missouri. Bailey says the success was not limited to just those 90 days.
If you look back across the last fiscal year, FBI St. Louis has made 545 arrests in its violent crime programs. That's a 71% increase from the previous year. It was 38% higher than peer offices on average.
An FBI spokeswoman says most of the people arrested are facing either state or federal criminal charges. I'm Rachel Littman, St. Louis Public Radio.
A city program aimed to provide displaced tenants with financial aid is now accepting applications. That's nearly a year after its launch. St. Louis officials say they began accepting applications for the Impacted Tenants Fund Friday. It's after legal hurdles and financial challenges stopped the program from taking applications. The news comes 2 weeks after aldermen questioned officials about why the program was so slow to get off the ground. The city expanded the program earlier this year to include tenants impacted by the May tornado. Eligible tenants receive up to 1 month of rent based on the federal government's fair market rates to help them relocate. Applications can be filled out online or in person at 2838 Market Street. The city of St. Louis has renewed its contract with a nonprofit to continue running its animal shelter. The agreement with Care STL had previously only been guaranteed through this December because of budgetary constraints. St. Louis Public Radio's Olivia Mizell reports the renewed funding for another 6 months is still not enough to care for all of the animals brought to the shelter.
The city originally told Care STL founder and CEO Wang Horak that to pay for the contract through June 2026, it would have to cut funding. After working with the Board of Aldermen, she was able to retain the same $675,000 for 6 months. The contract only budgets for 180 animals coming to the shelter each month. Horak says in reality, that number is closer to 350. The nonprofit has to pay to care for these extra animals.
Almost on a daily basis, we have to do fundraising to cover the overage of animals that are coming in that is not supported by the contract.
She says this money could be used instead to pay for community programs and renovations. I'm Olivia Mizell, St. Louis Public Radio.
A Houston-based company is taking over a small hospital on the city's north side. The hospital, formerly known as Homer G. Phillips Memorial, will be renamed Archview ER and Hospital. Nutex Health will operate the facility. It runs 24 others across the country. According to a statement, the micro-hospital is scheduled to open before the end of the year. Homer G. Phillips had opened in 2024 and closed less than a year later, citing a blood shortage. State officials cited the lack of a reliable operating budget, improper infection control measures, and other issues. Archview's website says it will not take Medicaid or Medicare, and care will likely be out of network for many patients. Thousands of St. Louisans found blue grocery bags tied to their door handles last week, and most knew just what to do with them. Scouting for food has been going on for 40 years now, a tradition that has people filling those blue bags with food items to donate. St. Louis Public Radio's Lucretia Wembley joined some of the scouts on the pickup route this weekend.
Young cubs from Scouting America are preparing to pick up blue bags filled with food and other items from residents across the Clayton area. Local scouts then take items like canned goods, applesauce, and toothpaste to be sorted and donated to food pantries ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. 9-year-old Evelyn Chang is a Cub Scout from Pack 400.
I really like being a scout because I get to help with the people in need with giving food to them, and I also get to do really fun things about like hiking and camping.
The Scouting for Food tradition started in 1985 in St. Louis, but expanded in 1988 to Scouting America programs across the country. I'm Lucretia Wembley, St. Louis Public Radio.
Six months after the May 16th tornado, people in North St. Louis are still struggling to pick up the pieces of their destroyed homes. And St. Louis Public Radio reporters found that even people who had homeowners insurance aren't getting what they need to rebuild. We begin with St. Louis Public Radio's Kayvon Mansouri, who talked with people having a hard time getting money from their providers.
Ratu Johnson plays a soprano saxophone in the first floor of the house he owns with his wife, Emma Stroud, in the Academy neighborhood. They love this 120-year-old home. They run a community music center out of the first floor. Overhead, a ceiling depicting the galaxy twinkles on the ceiling, but Stroud says soon it will need to come down due to water damage.
This area was unimpacted from May 16th. This happened as a result of them allowing this situation to go unresolved.
The May 16th tornado ripped the roof off the two-story home. Stroud says she thought it would be an easy fix due to their $500,000 homeowners policy. But for 2 months after the storm, she struggled with her insurance provider, State Farm, to get money to pay for the roof. All the while, rain poured into their tarp second floor, soaking the walls and seeping into the first floor. They haven't lived in the home since. 6 months later, they're still struggling to get what they feel State Farm owes them. They had to replace their roof, hire water remediators, and redo most of the second floor. But they say they've been paid only roughly $20,000 from their policy.
State Farm tried to get away cheap as possible with a policy we've been paying good money for to have coverage in the case of emergency like this.
Their story is all too common. While it's estimated more than 60% of homes in the area of devastation were uninsured, many people who did have insurance were underinsured or have struggled with their providers. Greg Wings works as a construction manager. He negotiates with insurance companies on behalf of his clients. He says insurance providers have fought his clients tooth and nail.
They get birthday cards, anniversary cards, and all that stuff from the agents and everything all along while things are peaceful. But the moment you file a claim, my friend, it's almost like the client becomes a villain at that moment.
I'm Kayvon Mansouri.
And I'm Andrea Henderson. Back in August, the St. Louis NAACP hosted a public meeting with the state's Commerce and Insurance Department. They wanted to help residents find answers to lingering issues caused by the tornado. Stacy Nash spoke at the meeting. The longtime Sherman Park resident was frustrated with her insurance company.
My adjusters did not come out until the next month after the tornado.
Nash has been insured by Allstate for 41 years, but during the meeting, she said she jumped through hoops to try to get her home's damage paid out.
But I'm trying to save my home. I've done them all. I've hired a structure engineer. I'm trying to hire an architect. So I'm just at wit's end.
Missouri's Department of Commerce and Insurance Director Angela Nelson says most complaints from the St. Louis tornado are about adjusters underestimating the home's destruction.
It really appears to me to be situations where the contractor believes, these 10 things need to be repaired. And the insurance company's claim adjusters looking at it and they're saying, well, we only see 7 of these.
A couple of hundred people reached out to Missouri Senator Josh Hawley's office to discuss tornado-related insurance issues. He says the bulk of the inquiries were about State Farm and Allstate.
People pay their policy for all of these years. Now when they need help, and these insurance companies come back and say, well, you don't quite qualify.
Nash says for decades, no agent advised her to look into better policy options.
I paid $360 monthly for home insurance alone. You would have thought it had a top-tier replacement value. I did not. I met an insurance person, and she ran the numbers for me. $50 more, $400. I would have had a top-tier replacement value insurance policy.
As frustrations with insurance companies grow by the day, many who want to rebuild say they're trying not to lose hope. I'm Andrea Henderson, St. Louis Public Radio.
Our Brian Moline edited that piece. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a listener-supported service of the University of Missouri-St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Abby Larico, and from the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, thanks for listening to The Gateway.